I hope that the family of Mr. Charles is able to move on after my passing.
Joe, come down. Try to breathe. Try to breathe, Joe. Try to breathe for me. Come on. Try to breathe.
At 7:23 p.m., inside the death chamber at Riverbend Maximum Security Institution, a man who had been waiting for this moment for 36 years, finally took his last breath. His name was Byron Black. To some, he was a father, a partner, a quiet man with a history of mental illness. To others, he was a cold-blooded killer, responsible for one of the most shocking family tragedies in Tennessee history. On a quiet March night in 1988, a home in Nashville turned into a crime scene that would haunt the state for decades. Two little girls, just 9 and 6 years old, and their mother, gone in an instant. The shooter? The same man who once promised to protect them. What could turn love into this level of violence? This is the story of betrayal, madness, and justice delayed for over 3 decades. Byron Lewis Black was born in 1956, right here in Tennessee. On the surface, there was nothing that stood out about him. No shocking childhood stories, no headlines waiting to happen. He grew up like many others, quiet, reserved, and largely unnoticed. Friends and family would later describe him as soft-spoken, even polite. He wasn't the kind of man who raised his voice. He worked steady jobs, earned a modest living, and kept to himself. At one point, he had a stable career and a reputation as a dependable worker. But behind that calm exterior, there were cracks no one saw. In his early adulthood, Byron started struggling with mental health issues. Doctors would later diagnose him with schizophrenia and major depressive disorder. He also suffered from seizures, which only added to the instability of his life. Still, those around him never imagined that these quiet warning signs would one day spiral into one of Tennessee's most brutal family murders. Byron Black didn't fit the image of a killer, until March 1988 proved otherwise. His fiancée, Angela Clay, was young, vibrant, and deeply protective of her 2 daughters from a previous relationship, 9-year-old Latoya and 6-year-old Lakeisha. At first, things seemed calm, but behind closed doors, tension simmered. Byron and Angela's relationship was fragile. Friends recalled arguments, whispered concerns, and moments where Angela seemed scared. By 1988, their relationship was falling apart. Angela wanted out. She wanted her children safe, her home peaceful. Byron, on the other hand, was losing control. He feared abandonment. He feared losing the only family he had. And in that fear, something dark began to grow. Then came the night of March 26, 1988. Angela and the girls were at home. What should have been a quiet evening turned into a nightmare. Around 10 p.m., Byron entered the house carrying a .22 caliber rifle. Investigators believe the argument started quickly, Angela telling him it was over, Byron refusing to accept it. And then, the shots rang out. Angela was the first. 1 bullet to the head. Panic filled the room as Latoya and Lakeisha ran for their lives. But there was no escape. Byron turned the rifle on them, 2 shots, 2 innocent children gone in an instant. By the time police arrived, the scene was pure horror. Angela lay dead, her 2 daughters beside her. A family home turned into a blood-stained grave. And Byron? He had already vanished into the night. So why did he do it? Prosecutors later argued it was control, that Byron couldn't handle rejection, couldn't bear the thought of Angela leaving him and taking the children. For Byron, it was the ultimate act of twisted possession. If I can't have them, no one will. That night, 3 lives ended. But for Byron Black, the story was just beginning, one that would stretch across courtrooms, psychiatric evaluations, and decades on death row. When officers arrived at Angela Clay's home on that March night, the horror spoke for itself. A mother and her 2 young daughters. No sign of forced entry. To detectives, that meant one thing: the killer was someone they trusted. It didn't take long for Byron Black's name to surface. Neighbors reported hearing arguments, and Angela had confided to friends that she was planning to leave him. Within hours, Byron became the prime suspect. Police tracked him down quickly, and when they did, he didn't put up a fight. Investigators later said Byron showed little emotion, calm, almost detached. In the trunk of his car, they found the weapon, a .22 caliber rifle. Ballistics matched it to the bullets pulled from Angela and her daughters. When questioned, Byron didn't deny being there. In fact, his statements were chilling in their simplicity. No elaborate excuses, no sign of panic, just a flat acknowledgement of what happened. By 1989, the case went to trial in Nashville. The courtroom was packed, family members, reporters, and citizens who wanted to see justice served. The prosecution painted Byron as a controlling, possessive man who snapped when Angela tried to leave. They showed jurors photos of the crime scene, played recordings of his interviews, and detailed how the murders were carried out. The defense fought back hard. They argued Byron was mentally ill, citing diagnoses of schizophrenia and major depression. They said he suffered from seizures and wasn't in his right mind the night of the killings. At one point, they even raised questions about whether he was competent to stand trial, but the jury didn't buy it. After hearing days of gut-wrenching testimony, they returned with a verdict, guilty on all counts. For Byron Black, the sentence was death. Byron's execution wouldn't happen for another 3 decades. And that long wait would spark a whole new debate about mental illness, mercy, and the death penalty. After the verdict, Byron Black was moved to death row at Riverbend Maximum Security Institution, a cold, concrete world where time crawls. Inside prison, Byron lived quietly. Guards described him as calm, even polite, never the type to cause trouble. He spent his days reading, writing letters, and receiving occasional visits from family and legal teams. If you saw him, you might think he was just another aging man, gray hair, glasses, and a body worn down by time. But behind those prison walls, a battle was raging, not with fists, but with paperwork. His attorneys filed appeal after appeal, arguing that Byron was not competent to be executed. Doctors diagnosed him with schizophrenia, major depressive disorder, and later, dementia. They claimed he no longer understood his punishment. Human rights advocates joined the fight, saying executing a mentally ill, elderly man was cruel and unconstitutional. For years, the case bounced through courts. At one point, it seemed possible that Byron might die of natural causes before the state could ever carry out his sentence. But in 2024, that changed. The Tennessee Supreme Court reviewed the case and ruled that Byron Black was competent enough for execution. His mental illness, they said, did not erase his responsibility for the crime. The ruling sealed his fate, and started the countdown to his final day. April 5, 2024. Byron woke up early that morning in his small death row cell. Breakfast was served, though it's unclear if he ate much. At 68 years old, his body was frail, his health failing. He spent time with a spiritual advisor, a chaplain who prayed with him and offered him comfort in those final hours. At 6:30 p.m., officers escorted Byron from his cell. Witnesses later said he walked slowly, without resistance, his face expressionless. Minutes later, he was strapped to the gurney, arms out, like a man being stretched into a final crucifixion. Needles inserted, tubes running clear liquid that would soon end his life. The clock ticked toward 7:23 p.m. There was no escape now. When the state offered him one final comfort, a last meal, Byron Black didn't ask for anything special. His choice was plain, almost forgettable: fried chicken, mashed potatoes with gravy, a slice of white bread, and a cup of water. For a man who waited 36 years for this moment, his final request said it all: quiet, simple, and resigned. Then came the question that always hangs in the air before the needle goes in: did he have any last words? Witnesses leaned in as the warden asked. For a few seconds, silence filled the chamber. Then, in a low voice, Byron spoke: "I'm sorry." 2 words. That was it. At 7:23 p.m., the warden gave the signal. The first drug began to flow, a sedative to quiet his body. Then the second, to paralyze. And finally, the third, to stop his heart. Witnesses said Byron Black never fought, never flinched. He lay still on the gurney, eyes closed, breathing slow until, it wasn't. At 7:39 p.m., the warden stepped forward and pronounced the words everyone had been waiting for: time of death, 7:39 p.m. Behind the glass, Angela Clay's family sat in silence. For 36 years, they carried the weight of that night, the pain, the anger, the questions. Now, the man who destroyed their world was gone. But some later admitted it didn't feel like closure. "You can't bring them back," one relative said. Outside the prison, reporters rushed to file their stories. The headlines would read, "Tennessee executes Byron Black." For the state, it was the end of a case. For the families, the grief never really ended. For others, it reopened an old debate: should a man diagnosed with schizophrenia and dementia be put to death? Advocates for mental health and human rights called it cruel, saying Byron Black's mind had long since faded, that executing him served no purpose but vengeance. State officials argued differently: 3 lives were taken in cold blood, and the punishment fit the crime. The case added fuel to an ongoing discussion about the death penalty in Tennessee, a system where appeals stretch decades and executions often spark more questions than answers. But for Angela Clay's family, those debates don't erase what happened in March 1988. 2 little girls and their mother are still gone. And now, the man who killed them is gone too. Justice? Closure? Or just another chapter in a story of pain that never truly ends? That's for you to decide. 3 lives stolen in a single night, and more than 3 decades of waiting for justice. Byron Black's name now joins the list of those executed by the state. But the pain, the questions, and the scars he left behind, will never fade. What do you think? Was this true justice, or should mental illness have changed his fate? Let us know in the comments. We read every one. If you found this case as haunting as we did, hit that like button, subscribe, and share this video with someone who loves true crime stories. And don't forget to turn on the bell so you never miss a case. Until next time, stay curious, stay safe.